Welcome to Touching Life Deeply channel. This research series is published on the channel at 8 p.m.
And welcome, everyone. It's good to be diving into another topic with you all today.
Absolutely. So today we're tackling something, well, pretty fundamental, aren't we? What actually makes us tick?
That's not...
That invisible force behind, what we think, how we feel, what we end up doing. Human motivation. It's a big one.
It really is. And the sources you shared for this, they really paint a picture of just how layered it is.
Yeah.
We're looking at research that spans, well, everything from our basic biology right up to our loftiest goals.
Exactly. And our goal here, our mission, is to try and understand this proposed integrated theory of our internal drive. One that tries to pull all these different threads together.
Which is needed, right?
Yeah, because motivation research can feel a bit scattered sometimes. This theory aims for a fuller picture, hopefully helping you see how it all connects and maybe what it means for you personally. Okay, let's get into it. So, first off, the material highlights a key challenge. Motivation is often studied in silos. You've got biological theories over here, social learning theories over there, cognitive approaches, maybe high-level goals somewhere else. Each is important, but it's like trying to understand a car by only looking at the engine, or just the wheels.
That's a great analogy. And it's the crux of why an integrated view is so necessary. I mean, think about all the influences.
Yeah.
Your genes, yes, but also hormones, what you learned growing up, your culture, the conscious choices you make, even like how much sleep you got.
Right. It's a massive list.
It is. So figuring out how all these things dance together dynamically across your whole life, that really demands a framework that can handle that kind of complexity.
Which brings us to this idea in the sources, a theory suggesting 3 interconnected stages of how this internal drive develops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, and this is really key, it's not presented like some simple ladder you climb step by step.
Okay.
The sources are clear. Think of it more like a dynamic interactive system. A complex adaptive system is the term used, with constant feedback loops between the stages.
So less like stairs, more like a web. Or maybe interacting gears.
Precisely. A dynamic web is a good way to put it. What happens at one level influences the others, back and forth, all the time. It's not strictly linear at all. Okay, so keeping that dynamic system in mind, the theory breaks it down. Stage 1, that's the biological foundation, the bedrock, essentially.
Right.
And the research emphasizes this isn't static either. It talks about genetics, obviously our inherited blueprint, but also epigenetics.
Epigenetics. That's where the environment comes in and flicks gene switches on or off, yeah. Without actually changing the DNA code itself.
Yeah. It shows our biology is constantly interacting with our world right from the start. It's not just fixed hardware. And within this biological layer, the sources really zoom in on neurotransmitters.
The brain's chemical messengers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they get a lot of airtime here.
They certainly do. 2 in particular, dopamine and serotonin. Let's maybe start with dopamine.
Okay.
It's described as playing a massive role in, well, a lot. Motivation, obviously, but also pleasure, feeling satisfied, staying focused, even coordinating movement. It's made deep in the brain. And the research points to 2 main dopamine pathways relevant here. One is tied to the reward center. That's the wanting system.
Your drive to go get things.
Exactly. Seeking pleasure, rewards, novelty. But then there's another system, more like a control center. This one boosts the prefrontal cortex.
The part for planning, judgment, impulse control. The thinking part.
Right. So dopamine isn't just about the chase. It's also about our ability to manage that chase, make considered decisions.
And dopamine's been popping up everywhere lately, hasn't it? Dopamine fasting, social media addiction links, even fashion trends like dopamine dressing to feel good. It's definitely captured the public imagination.
It has. And this research helps ground some of that, showing why it's so fundamental.
Then we have serotonin, often called the mood chemical.
That's its most famous role, yeah, mood regulation. But the sources show it's broader influencing stress response, even things like gut motility. It's made from tryptophan, an amino acid we get from food.
And here's that wild fact from the sources. Something like 95% of the body's serotonin isn't even in the brain. It's produced in the gut. Only 5% in the central nervous system.
Isn't that amazing? It really drives home that gut-brain connection. What happens in your gut can genuinely impact your brain chemistry.
Mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And crucially, while they have different main jobs, dopamine and serotonin don't work in isolation. The research really stresses their interaction. And this interaction seems particularly relevant for understanding things like impulsive aggression. The sources suggest that low serotonin levels might sort of prime someone for impulsive aggression.
Okay, a vulnerability there.
Right. And then that low serotonin can apparently lead to dopamine dysregulation specifically, making the dopamine system hyperactive.
So less serotonin control, more dopamine go.
Kind of. And that combination, the serotonin deficit plus the hyperactive dopamine, can really fuel aggressive behaviors. The research suggests this messed up dialogue between them, especially in the prefrontal cortex where we have control, might be a common biological thread linking impulsive aggression to other issues too.
Like what?
Things like depression, suicidal thoughts and actions, even substance abuse problems.
Wow. So seemingly separate issues might actually share some underlying roots in how these two chemicals are interacting or not interacting properly.
It points that way. It really reinforces that integrated view things are connected biologically.
Okay, so if these neurotransmitters are so important and their balance matters, can we do anything to support them naturally? The sources mentioned some strategies, right?
You did, yeah. Practical things based on the research. Diet is a big one.
Makes sense.
Eating foods with tyrosine lean proteins, dairy, nuts helps dopamine production. For serotonin, you want tryptophan, things like turkey, eggs, spinach, seeds.
And didn't they mention something about carbs?
Yes. Pairing those tryptophan foods with carbs might actually help the tryptophan get into the brain more easily. Something about how insulin works.
Interesting. Okay, diet. What else?
Exercise. Especially aerobic exercise, getting your heart rate up, seems beneficial for both dopamine and serotonin.
Good old-fashioned movement.
Can't beat it. Also, getting enough bright light exposure, think sunlight. And managing stress is huge.
How so?
Things like yoga, journaling, deep breathing, even listening to calming music are mentioned as helpful. Reducing that chronic stress load.
And connecting with people.
Yes. Socializing, spending quality time with loved ones, that seems to support serotonin.
And there were a couple with specific numbers mentioned. Meditation.
Right. One study cited showed a pretty big jump, like 65% in dopamine release after an hour of meditation.
Wow.
And massage therapy. Research suggests it can increase dopamine by around 30% and also lower cortisol, the stress hormone.
So these aren't just feel-good things. They can have measurable biological effects.
That's the takeaway, yeah. All right, moving up conceptually. Stage 2 in this model involves interactive and social mechanisms.
So how we learn from others, our environment.
Exactly. Things like social learning, conditioning, our relationships, the culture around us. The sources acknowledge these are crucial factors shaping motivation, even if they don't detail every single mechanism within this specific theory's presentation. The environment definitely plays a role.
So it's not just what's inside us biologically, but how that interacts with the world and the people around us.
Precisely. Our experiences shape our drives. Then comes stage 3, our cognitive and higher order abilities.
This is the more thinking part.
You could say that. It covers cognitive control, executive functions planning, decision-making, working memory, developing self-awareness, understanding our own minds, and emotional regulation, managing our feelings.
This feels like where we get more conscious steering ability, understanding why we feel driven or not, and maybe nudging things.
That's a good way to put it. Intention, reflection, self-direction, they become much more prominent at this level. But again, the absolute key here is that these stages, biological, social interactive, cognitive, they aren't separate compartments.
Right, the dynamic interaction you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The theory emphasizes constant interplay. Your biology affects how you react to your social world.
Makes sense.
Those social experiences then shape your cognitive development, what you value, the goals you set, and your thinking, your self-awareness, your choices. They can influence your behavior, which changes your environment, impacts your relationships.
And could even loop back to influence biology through things like stress levels or lifestyle.
Precisely. It's a continuous feedback system, not a simple one-way street at all.
Okay, that's a really comprehensive way of looking at it. It makes motivation feel less mysterious, maybe. So let's bring it home. Why does understanding this complex, multi-layered model matter for you, listening right now? What's the so what?
Yeah, the practical implications. Well, firstly, it helps understand your own development, right? Motivation isn't fixed. It changes across your life, shaped by this ongoing dance between biology, experiences, and your thinking.
So you're not just stuck with the motivation you have now?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It also has big implications for education. It suggests effective teaching isn't just about carrots and sticks. It's about creating environments that foster that sense of autonomy, competence, feeling connected, while also acknowledging that kids might have different biological starting points for things like focus or energy.
So a more tailored approach, understanding the different layers influencing a student.
Exactly. And for mental well-being, this model is huge. If someone's struggling with, say, apathy or addiction or impulse control.
Yeah.
This framework suggests you probably shouldn't look for just one cause. Motivation problems likely involve glitches or imbalances across multiple levels. Maybe there's a biological factor, maybe environmental stressors, maybe underdeveloped coping skills.
So interventions might need to target different areas.
That's the implication. A more holistic approach might be needed, not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. And what about just for personal growth, for someone wanting to understand themselves better?
It's incredibly empowering, I think. It gives you a map to become more self-aware, to ask why you feel motivated or stuck in certain areas. It helps you appreciate that building motivation isn't just about willpower. It involves nurturing your body,
Okay.
cultivating supportive relationships, and actively working on your self-understanding and cognitive skills. You can see how tweaking one area might ripple through the whole system.
Wow. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground. We saw why we need an integrated view, moving past fragmented ideas of motivation. We explored this three-stage model, but crucially as a dynamic, complex system, not rigid steps.
Right.
We really dove into stage one, the biology, dopamine and serotonin, their production, that fascinating gut connection, their critical interaction, possibly linking aggression and other issues, and importantly, natural ways to potentially support them through diet, exercise, stress management. Then we touched on stage two, the social and interactive influences, and stage three are higher cognitive functions like self-awareness and control. And the main theme, tying it all together, constant interaction and feedback between these levels. It really does offer a much richer understanding of what drives us.
It does. And maybe, as a final thought for everyone listening to mull over, if our motivation truly is this intricate interplay of biology we don't fully control, environments we react to, and cognitive processes shaped by both, how much conscious command do we really have over our deepest drives? And how much are we steered by forces operating just below the surface of our awareness? Something to think about.
And finally, some of the information in this research episode has been compiled from public sources and scientific publications. We are not responsible for any misuse of the content beyond its intended purpose of education and raising awareness. Don't forget to follow Touching Life Deeply so you won't miss our next meaningful insights.